All right, let's put this into practice with a passage so you can see what it looks like. So let's say this is the passage that I'm faced with on the SOL. I open it up. I immediately see, because there are two tabs. I'm in that before reading stage. I'm previewing, kind of figuring out what the genre is. I see hummingbirds, and I see here the title. And if I don't have any other text features. I see there's only 4 paragraphs, but I am seeing that it looks like The Most Amazing Creatures, Native. I'm just looking at the beginning because I don't have any other features. This looks like this is nonfiction and going to be fact-based about hummingbirds. So let me click on my other. My brain is thinking right now I might want to do a bridge because I see a paired passage, but let me look at that second text. My second text, this looks like a poem because I see stanzas, and that's making me go back and question, do I want to annotate with a bridge even though this is paired? Because I've got a nonfiction and I've got a poem. I might be better off doing maybe main ideas for the nonfiction and using my on and under the surface thinking for the poetry, just because it may be really hard to find a bridge between a poem. I'm going to assume there's probably a hummingbird in this just because they put them together, and we know they put passages together for a reason. But I don't know that I can create a really strong bridge in this case. So in this case, it's kind of an exception. I think I'm going to annotate the hummingbird passage because it's nonfiction. Only 4 paragraphs. I could do a main idea for each one. That would be super easy. And then for Among the Leaves, I'm going to use that on and under the surface thinking to make sure I'm really understanding and breaking down the meaning of the poem. So let me show you what setting up your scratch paper would look like. So that's the before reading step. That's you just previewing the text features, figuring out your genre, getting your brain ready and set, and setting that purpose for reading. So on my scratch paper, I'm going to put passage 1 or P1, and that one's called Hummingbirds. I like to put the title just so I know what my annotations go with. I know it's nonfiction, and I think I'm going to use just main ideas because I've got 4 paragraphs. That would be super easy to do. Then, because it's paired, I'm going to put the other one because I know I'm probably going to need that sheet for passage 1. I'm going to put passage 2 or P2 to shorten it. Again, with testing and annotation, we cannot be as detailed as we were in class. We're being quicker and putting all of that to practice. So passage 2 is called Among the Leaves. And it's poetry. I'm going to do on and under. All right. So to set up my scratch paper, we know in that during reading that we saw in the anchor chart, I'm going to do reader and writer. I'm not going to have super detailed writer notes just because I don't know what questions they're going to ask me about writer's technique. So I'm just going to do the ones that stand out to me. Again, to shorten that annotation just a little bit, but I'm going to do reader, writer. So I can put my main ideas over here. And if I have any noticings that really pop out, stand out to me, I'm going to put those here. On the back, because poetry's got on and under, might make that read like a reader column, just slightly bigger. And here, I'm going to do like a little dotted line. And then I can do my on, everything that's directly stated, and my under, the stuff that I really have to break down the meaning on. Okay, so I've got my scratch paper set. I am ready to read. I have set my purpose. My brain is ready. Okay, so here we go. Hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are one of nature's most amazing creatures. Native only to the Western Hemisphere, these small birds are known for their deft flying abilities. They have a unique ability to hover in midair by rapidly flapping their wings as much as 80 times per second. In fact, hummingbirds are named for the distinct humming sound created by this rapid wing beat. Hummingbirds are the only birds that can actually fly backwards, and they can move quickly and easily in almost any direction. Therefore, if you've seen a petite bird appearing to dart and hover from one spot to the next, you were most likely watching a hummingbird. So immediately, I feel like that whole paragraph, it was all about their amazing, unique flying abilities. So I'm going to put a 1 for my paragraph 1 on my scratch paper. And I'm going to say unique flying abilities. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back. I think that's my main idea in a quick nutshell. Paragraph 2. Hummingbirds use their unique ability to hover in place while feeding on flower nectar. They sip their sweet meals by reaching inside the flower with their narrow bills and split tongues. They also eat hundreds of insects each day. In fact, their flying style requires so much energy that hummingbirds must consume enough food to nearly equal their body weight each day. So this one to me is all about their eating. So I think I will call this one Hummingbird Diet, or HB. Again, I'm shortening it, trying to keep these meaningful so that I'll know what was in the paragraph and where to look to find information related to that topic, but concise because I know I've got a couple passages to do. Paragraph 3. Hummingbirds make delightful and beneficial visitors to any garden. They help pollinate plants and flowers much as bees do. Attracting these fascinating creatures is easy. Simply set up a hummingbird feeder in early spring and keep it filled with a syrupy mixture. Before long, your garden will be humming with activity. So when I read over this one again, I think it's really all about how we want to attract hummingbirds to our garden because they're helpful. So on my scratch paper, I think I'm going to put for paragraph 3, attracting helpful hummingbirds to the garden. I am almost shortening these like they're a heading or a title. So if you want to think about it like that, but a meaningful heading and title that's really going to tell me what that paragraph is about. All right, last paragraph, paragraph 4. Hummingbirds are migratory and will leave in late fall when the weather gets too cold. Keep the feeder up 2 to 3 weeks after the last hummingbird is spotted. It might serve as a helpful feeding spot for passing hummingbirds migrating south. Don't worry about delaying their migration because hummers know when it's time to leave, even if that means passing up a free lunch. All right, and then my last one, I feel like that one's all about how hummingbirds migrate. And let's see, they told me, okay, yeah, when it leaves, I was just making sure. That's all I wanted to add for that one. Okay, so I have read this as a reader. I've got my main ideas. I am now, if we go back to that anchor chart, we're going to give it a quick second glance and just pull out those things that are sticking out to us as writers that we learned about this year for nonfiction. So in paragraph 1, I noticed this stuck out to me when I was reading about their flying abilities, 80 times per second. So I feel like there, in paragraph 1, we had a word choice thing. They were using a number and stat. And I'm being really quick here. 80 times, that's going to remind me. And they're really, to me, showing how fast. That's why the author's using it. Again, I'm keeping these really concise, but enough that I could go back to it if there was a question about it. Then in paragraph 2, I go back, I noticed another number in stat, because I remember this stuck out to me the first time I read it, that they consume enough food to nearly equal their body weight each day. So that, again, is just showing the author's trying to emphasize how much they eat. And for that one, I'm just going to write body weight, just to remind myself. I can write the whole thing, and shows how much they eat. Okay. They eat a lot for their size. And then if I go to paragraph 3, Oh, when I read this, because they're like beneficial to the garden, I felt like the writer was using a lot of positive word choice with that positive connotation. So I really stuck to the word choice here. That was what was really sticking out to me, but that's perfectly fine. So we have positive connotation, and we had like beneficial, fascinating. And that to me just paints those, really lets the reader understand that the author thinks hummingbirds are like a cool thing that you want to attract to your garden. So I like that positive word choice there. Okay, viewpoint. And then last paragraph, I'm trying to remember what popped out to me here. Oh, I thought it was the ending. It said, even if that means they pass up a free lunch, because we do know they like to eat a lot. And so I thought that was great. Another kind of word choicey thing, not a specific one we talked about this year, but humor, right? It's kind of funny way to end it. So it's the free lunch thing. And it ends the text, even though it's nonfiction, kind of a funny way. Okay, and that's really what stood out to me. So I'm being pretty quick with this, but enough that I've thought of it like a writer. And now, because it's paired, I've got to do the same thing for the other text. So I'm going to switch over to my other scratch paper, and you can kind of tackle your annotations for poetry by stanza, or sometimes because of the way the punctuation is, you might kind of pull two stanzas together, or if there's kind of continuing the story, if it's telling a story, you can keep those grouped together. That's just going to kind of depend on the poem that you're reading and what works best for you. So you're going to see me probably kind of group them that way. So let's read it like a reader first. Again, I'm going back to that during reading because I have a second passage, and because it's poetry, I'm using the on and under thinking that we've learned this year. So let's start off stanza 1. Among the Leaves, Barbara Evans Stanish. That's our author. And I see a 1 right here, almost like it's a part 1, and then I see a 2. So that's making me think that. Oh, and I also see, as far as text features go, a footnote here telling me that lichen is a type of moss that grows on trees. So that's all important before I read. Earlier, I just kind of looked immediately, saw the stanzas, and was like, oh, poetry, but those are other text features that I want to pay attention to. Why are there 2 parts of this poem? That's something to think about as I'm trying to understand it as a reader. All right, stanza 1. You found it high amid thick branches, upright on a twig, plastered with lichen, blending with the live oak. All right, so if I think about what I know, what's actually on the surface that I can pull out easily, it's directly stated. Something was found on a twig, and the twig has lichen on it, and we know lichen's moss. Like that is directly stated. So here, I'm just going to do stanza 1, and it says you found it. So somebody, we don't know who the you is yet, somebody found something, because it said you found it. We don't know the you or the it yet, on a twig covered in moss. Because of that footnote, I know that lichen is moss. Okay, so that to me is directly stated. If I go back to the poem, it said it was blending with the live oak, so I feel like that is a little bit more under the surface. I have to infer there that just means that whatever the thing is they found, it was hard to see. So here I'll say found item hard to see. Okay, again, just trying to keep these meaningful but concise. And then I'm going to go on back to the poem. And that ended with a period, so that's kind of why I chose to stop at that stanza. But I noticed the next two, there's not a period here, but there is here. So I think I want to group 2 and 3 together. You spied it, bright-eyed daughter, keen to find another life among the hard leaves. You climbed to watch a hummer feeding nestlings, their tiny beaks gaped red. The mother did not scare. The nest bulged with growing. Okay, so we learned some new information here. We now know our you that found this thing is the daughter. And a hummer, and we know the other passage was about hummingbirds, so a hummer feeding nestlings, so she found a mom and a baby. That to me is directly stated. And it's a nest because it said the nest. So let's start with that for our on the surface. This is stanza 2 and 3. So we've got a little bit more information now. The daughter found hummingbird mom and babies nest. Okay. And I believe it said you climbed. So we know she climbed up somehow to watch them. And that it said the mother did not scare. So the hummingbird mom did not scare. Like all of that to me is directly stated there. So daughter climbed to see it. And one thing you could do, if you didn't want to rewrite all of this on the surface, you could highlight the on the surface in one of the colors, and then everything you highlighted in the poem is what actually happened, and like there's not like that hidden meaning you have to infer, and then really just annotate the under. Like I think that would work too. That would be a personal preference, but if you can do it quickly, I think it's okay to jot it down. So just something I want to point out about on the surface, because it is directly stated, you could just highlight it. All right, so she's not scared. And then the only thing that I felt like was under the surface in that section was it said the nest bulged with growing. I just think that means it's full with several baby hummingbirds. And, obviously they're growing, but I'm going to put that over here. Remember, as we've talked about in class, it's not so much is it on, is it under? It's just that you're breaking down the meaning of the poem and dissecting it. So don't get too caught up in that. Remember, that is not the point of this. The point of this is to make you slow down and read the poem and digest it in a way that you wouldn't if you just read it quickly. Several baby hummingbirds. Just going to go really quick there. Okay. Going to go back, and I'm going to end that section with 4 because I don't want to put part 2. So section 4, you called me to the mystery, so slight. I lost the nest each time my stare wavered. You balanced on a ladder, took a photograph. So to me, this is my on the surface. Again, see, I could just highlight it. I could also write it on the left side of my scratched paper, but it is just what's right there and directly stated. Daughter climbed the ladder. Remember, she was climbing up in the last one. Now we know what she's climbing up on, and she takes a picture. And then for under the surface, I feel like more of that stanza under the surface, because I was like, wait, what is this person saying? I think it's saying, you called me to the mystery so slight, I lost. So I think the daughter is calling the mom, hey, come look at this. But the mom has a hard time seeing it because it's so small. So that was not directly stated. So we could just say daughter calls mom to see nest. Mom has a hard time because it's small. All right. I think I'm going to draw a line because now we're getting into that part 2. This was part 1. And I think the writer did that for a reason. And so I think to separate my annotations is probably really important. And then I'm going to go back to the poem to read part 2 and really think about the why there's a part 2. Opening a box chock full of unclaimed views, I gaze at live oak leaves in black and white, a puzzle. Until you, there's no period, so I'm going to keep going. Until you, long grown and distant, recall the hummingbird, remind me of the nest, the littlest nest crafted by a mother, who fused spider webs and moss into a bowl of softest down and laid 2 pulsing ovals, warmed them, brooded them to flight. Okay, I went all the way because that's where that final period was, so I feel like I kind of wanted to look at it all as one section, probably for my annotations, but I still need to go back and kind of slowly break it down in my head. So, opening a box chock full of unclaimed views, I gaze at the live oak in black and white, a puzzle. So it's a puzzle, something hard to figure out. Black and white, it's unclaimed views. I know that day that daughter she took a picture. So I'm thinking that these are probably photos that the mom is looking back at, because it says until you, long grown and distant. So you remembers the daughter, long grown and distant. Obviously the daughter is grown up and maybe lives far away, but she remembers or recalls and reminds the mom of this hummingbird nest and the mom and the baby, and there's lots of description about that. It goes into great detail about that. So, I think most of this, honestly, is very under the surface because I had to figure out unclaimed views, was pictures, black and white. There were clues. There were lots of little clues. And the fact that she's long grown and distant, now the daughter's living away. And then this part right here, I mean, I guess we could say that's a little bit more on the surface, just describing the hummingbird and the mom babies, but it's also uses a lot of really descriptive language. So over here, I think I'm going to do 5 to 7. Again, not so concerned is it on or under, but just can I break down the meaning? I'm going to put it more over here and just say, mom looks. Oh, and I'm saying it's a mom, but actually it's a parent. They never say if it's a mom or a dad. I think because I'm a mom, I just assume it's a mom. So we'll keep going with that, but I think we could say that it's a parent because we don't know. I'm just assuming it's a mom because also there was a mom hummingbird and a baby. So I think that's also probably what made me think that. Just wanted to point that out. Mom looks at old pictures. Daughter. I'm going to add she's now grown. Calls her. And reminds her. Well, maybe, I don't know if she said she recalled. So we'll say, daughter, now grown, reminds mom of the hummingbird nest, the mom and the babies. Okay. And then we'll go finish with stanza 8. Moments hidden in the live oak, large among the leaves. So I think they're just kind of wrapping it up and ending it. This was this cool parent-daughter moment. They're going to always remember that day. It's always going to be a memory for them. So I feel like that's more under the surface. Parent-daughter moment. We'll always remember that day. Okay, now I want to quickly think like a writer. We know poetry is going to have a lot of great techniques in it, but I'm going to, again, just pick the ones that quickly pop out to me. I'm going to kind of look at stanza 1 through 4. I thought the word choice, the imagery here. The twig plastered with lichen, the bright-eyed daughter, the hummer feeding the nestlings, the tiny beak scaped red, the nest bulging. All of that. I could picture that. I thought those were great sensory details. So I'm just going to do 1 through 4, imagery, lots of sight. And I think the author's doing that so I can picture it. And babies, and the tree with all the lichen, and the mom and the daughter and the ladder, like all of that's a very visual. Okay. The other thing, the whole thing, this is like across the whole text, but was the first person point of view, but it being the mom or the parent. And that just lets us see the parent perspective. So that's kind of cool. That's probably why the author did it. And that's one of our literary devices, if you like labeling these like we did this year. Word choice, literary device. And then the other thing that I don't know that I have a name for it other than it's like a structural thing, because this is kind of telling a story, almost like a plot structure thing. But the part 1 and part 2, I feel like the author jumped in time. So we had a time jump. And I think that just allowed us to see that the first part was a memory. So part 1 was a memory. So again, very quickly going back and hitting some of those kind of major writer's moves that I saw in that text.